First-party data, even with the cookies being in place still right now, is the way to go to increase your marketing effectiveness. Status quo management, it's not as formative as being close to the heart of the innovation and the disruptions. Now omnichannel is literally omnichannel, is the real Latin word omni, because it's live streaming, it's social selling, it's peer-to-peer, it's re-commerce. With the push for sustainability, real sustainability is re-commerce, taking it back and reselling. So companies are going to be needing to build and stitch together first-party data, which is not just the CRM and loyalty and the fact that you know my name, my telephone, my email. I'm very passionate about mentoring other women, leaders, and oh my gosh, it's so rewarding. And I have to say, like in just the 10 to 15 years, so many things have changed. Like we focus on what has not changed yet, but actually we should be talking about like the glass half full, because we have broken so many glass ceilings and so many measures of achievement. I'm so proud of all the women in the world and what they contributed to achieve. It's another place where like disruption is happening, the boardroom.
Here is Paula Macadi, and this is episode 5 of my show. Welcome to OFFBounds. Have you ever met someone who inspired you immediately? That was my case when I met Silvia Mazzucchelli, a very inspiring leader who led the transformation and turnarounds of companies like Guess, Tom's, American Apparel, and others. In our interview that took place in New York, Silvia shares some of the challenges she encountered in her career and the importance of preparing the leadership and the team for what a transformation takes. After years transforming companies in C-level roles, Silvia is now the board member of different DTC brands and tech companies, a complete role model for me. But before we dive into the interview, I'd like to please ask you to subscribe to the show, either on YouTube or any podcast provider, so you don't miss any episode. I promise I'll keep working super hard to bring you the best content. And this episode was only possible thanks to VTEX. VTEX is the backbone of composable commerce, serving clients in 38 countries and considered by Gartner the #1 unified commerce platform in the world. Silvia, thank you so much for being here. It's a pleasure to finally meet you in person.
Thank you, Paula. Likewise. Excited to be here with you.
Thank you. Grazie. I remember the first time we had a conversation, I asked where you were from, and you were like, yeah, I don't know at this point. I don't feel 100% of anything.
Citizen of the world.
Citizen of the world, exactly. Do you think that shaped you professionally, having this?
Very much so.
Yeah?
Very much so. And I'm also very proud of it. So really citizen of the world. I grew up in Italy. I studied across Europe, from Italy to Sweden. Lived in the United States, studied in the United States, worked all across North America. I think that this dual cultural experience really shaped who I am, the values I carry, broadened my perspectives, and reached my lives with relationships that are not geographically bound, and really made me a better executive, professional, and frankly person, because I'm able to relate to people at multiple levels, at different levels, and I can be a bridge. Professionally, for example, I've always found it very easy to bring my Italian European heritage into product passion style, and that being like a reason to be recognized in the United States. And then conversely, bringing my ability to navigate the US to international companies that want to come to the US and want to understand how to do business in the US. So definitely has been a great, I think, asset for me and for my experiences.
And I was checking your profile, preparing for this interview, and I saw you worked in consulting for a while, and then you went to work for some DTC brands. How was this transition?
I would say it was both exciting and scary and challenging, extremely formative. So exciting because I joined from the Boston Consulting Group. I joined retail and fashion, several brands in retail and fashion, from Guess Jeans to Tom's Shoes, American Apparel, and several others. And has always been my passion. And so that was really exciting. I joined the fashion and retail industry at a time when there was a lot of disruption, a lot of innovation, both in terms of like emerging DTC brands, digital technology completely changing the way brands go to market. I joined when private equity investors and investors were pouring a lot of dollars into both the technology that powers commerce for digital brands and, quite frankly, into fashion brands. So it was an exciting time, because business models were disrupted, omnichannel was emerging, e-commerce was emerging, and look at now. We have live stream shopping, social shopping, asset-light showrooms shopping. Of course, we have e-commerce. Of course, we have peer-to-peer shopping. We have re-commerce. We have all sorts of business models that did not exist, at the beginning. And so I was part of that, and I grew with that, and that was incredibly formative. And then I would say, for me personally, the challenge was that I've always been attracted, and I realized this afterwards, but I've always been attracted to working with strong personalities and founders. And in fashion, there is certainly a lot of strong personalities and very visionary and sometimes, difficult to deal with founders. I learned a lot from them, both in terms of what to do and the vision, but also about maybe some leadership styles that are less suited to scaling.
Do you think that this experience kind of gave you a superpower to deal with difficult personalities? Now you know how to handle them?
I certainly realized, and again, this was not a choice, or if it was more subliminal, and it took me a second to. I think that my even keel, my rationality, my ability to structure the chaos was a good complement. Certainly in several situations, it was particularly challenging, at least for me, because you absorb a lot of that energy and you just have to put it to good use.
Well, talking about strong personalities, you joined American Apparel as a CMO in 2016.
Yeah.
That was when the CEO was just leaving, right?
So the CEO had been ousted already by the board. There was a new board, a new CEO, a perfectly competent and normal in a good way CEO, Paula Schneider, that I really
Beautiful
respected.
Name.
Yes, really respected. And so I decided to join American Apparel in the story of restructuring because I actually really believed in the brand. Look, the brand was over $500 million in revenues, was never profitable from the get-go, and was never profitable at $500 million, was a global brand with hundreds of stores, beloved by the fans, and yet a business of $500 million should make a lot of money. And so for me, it was an opportunity. I thought that the brand bones, let's say, the iconic nature of the brand DNA was absolutely worthy existing and revamping. I thought that the business had major organizational and process dysfunctions that could be fixed. And I thought that the brand had an absolute reason to exist as the provider of colorful, sexy basics with a retro vintage vibe. And so, I took on the challenge, and it was probably one of the most rewarding, fun experiences of my executive life. Thinking back, probably I was a little crazy, but that's okay.
Would you take that role now?
I actually would take that role now, and I would take it if I knew that the owners of the brand, let's say, were fully committed to leveraging and monetizing the brand with this vision of bringing, provider of sexy, colorful basics to the market, key competitor to a variety of brands that exist now. And I would redo it. I think the commitment and the resources behind it would be probably something that I would assess further.
How do you ensure the brands have the capital and the resources for a transformation before accepting roles like that?
Yeah, so it's something that you got better at doing with more experience. And American Apparel is the perfect example. So I would say transformations that take time and take certainly resources. I would start from making sure that there is alignment of the minds and alignment of the vision that comes from, yes, the executive team, but also the ownership team. If the company is privately owned, the investors. If the company is publicly owned, I would say the board, to make sure there is a commitment long term, because transformations do require, months and years and capital allocation and resources
and
allocation.
You have to make sure that everybody understands that,
Absolutely.
Right? It's not going to transform in 3 months.
Absolutely. And then once that is in place, then I think that cascading down the vision and getting the right team to execute the vision is the second step. That is a requirement. But quite honestly, it's easier to do the second. But you cannot do the second if you don't have the first. So I would probably ensure, now that I have more experience dealing with investors and managing up, so to speak, I would probably spend more time making sure that the vision is fully aligned and fully committed to for the long term.
So I would say, like, before accepting a role, would you go through this is how much it's going to take, this is the time?
I will go to the board, which, by the way, in the case of American Apparel, I did, to the board and to the CEO and to the new owners. And actually, in that case, I presented a business plan and had the business plan blessed.
Are you ready for how much it's going to take?
Yes.
And how long it's going to take?
Yes. And then, then in life, you learn that things happen and priorities change, especially in volatile markets. So there is always an element of flexibility that you need to maintain because things happen, right? So who would have expected COVID, for example?
And do you have, this American Apparel seems to be a fascinating case study of your career. Do you have other cases of transformation that you're very proud of?
Very much. So Tom's Shoes, for example, is one that I'm really proud of. I joined Tom's Shoes in the early days when the brand was growing and was basically a brand that invented socially responsible business. So right now we take it for granted. Every brand has some form of responsible impact.
Or they're trying to make this
like every brand now is expected to have like a responsibility stand in some sort of fashion, whether it's green, whether it's diversity, whether it's back then. Tom's was really the first brand that brought it to market with the 1-for-1. You buy one shoes, we give one shoes. And so that was exciting. Again, it was a charismatic founder. And I joined his organization as the chief merchandising officer. And my mandate was to grow the company and grow the business. And we put in place over 2 years a very strategic plan to diversify into new categories. When I joined, it was one shoe in 100 colors, more or less. I'm oversimplifying, but that was kind of the core of the business. And I'm very proud that over 2 years, we diversified into different categories, from booties to sneakers, from sandals to kids' shoes. And that opened up like the international markets. We were able to seasonalize the shoe, winterize the shoe to make it a shoe that you could wear in the summer and you could wear in the winter.
All year long.
And that expanded sales drastically and put the brand in a much more leadership position, not only in the US, but also in Europe, where most of the times the weather is not that great, and certainly in Asia. So that was really fun. And then the proudest thing I would say is that I joined a company that was already sizable when I came on board and was already successful, but was very much run like an early startup. So I still remember that was like coming in as the chief merchandising officer and asking, so how many styles do we have? And that took like 10 days, the answer to come back. And then I still remember asking, so where do we make money? What is our, gross margin? And that took another 5 days to come back. So I'm very proud of
that was when you realized, like, okay, I have a lot of work
I
here.
have a lot of work. So I'm very proud of the fact that I built the organization. I built like basic processes, the tools, the foundational capabilities that enable the company to scale further. And I think that this helped the company also go through a very successful transaction with a private equity 2 years after I was there. So
because now that at this point you knew already how many pieces they
yes,
had.
when I left, my team was able to answer all of these questions and way more in a very efficient and proficient manner.
And so you buy one shoes and you give another one. You end up like going on trips giving these shoes.
Actually, it was a very authentic, it was really a soul enriching experience because the company truly did what we predicated, let's say. So it was 100% authentic. I did go to the so-called giving trip in Guatemala. It was heartbreaking, up in the mountains in Guatemala, where we went to this community where girls were not even going to school because there was no public school in the radius of walking distance. They were completely illiterate. Many of them were pregnant at 13 or 14, which for me, being the young mother of one daughter, was absolutely devastating to see. Really, really moving. And where like women were the backbone of the family, the work, the stability, the little microeconomy that goes on in these villages, because their strength and their dedication to the family is basically what everybody relies on. So it was eye-opening and really emotionally touching. And then we went to the city where we actually saw cataract surgeries, because part of our eyewear program, every time we sold a pair of eyewear, we gave a cataract surgery for free. And so that was my first cataract surgery, which looks a little bit like sushi to watch. So it's also disturbing, but at a whole different level.
But that's nice because it gives the culture of the company, right? Like we are doing something meaningful. We are changing people's lives. So I think it gives you even more energy to grow the business and to know that you are pursuing something greater than just a transaction.
Yep.
And any of these projects that you worked on in your life, did you have one that you thought you wouldn't make it? They were like, oh my God, I thought too high.
I think all of them, at some point, you think that you don't make it. But I think that failure is part of success, right? So there isn't success that lasts and failure that is not recoverable. So I think that you always have to go through it with that attitude that you just have to find the solutions and be resilient.
And do you think that it made you everything that you worked on and all the processes of reassuring that your failures were learned from and etc.?
Always.
Did that make you a stronger leader? I assume so.
Always. And somebody asked me recently, I was at a conference, and somebody asked me, what suggestions I had for them in terms of career development and career choices. And I told them that they should seek difficult situations, because I found, and again, you learn it, you learn it by doing it. It's easy now for me to say, but the younger me wouldn't know. But I realized that I learned way more through some of the stickiest, most difficult, challenging situations than I would have learned in what I call a steady state manager role, manager meaning leader role. So I would encourage the younger me to take on those situations, because those are the really formative ones. And then you can use them also in steady state, because at that point you can anticipate the challenges and see the roadblocks and see the potholes that are ahead of you. But it takes some courage to make the choices of embarking in difficult trips, but they're very rewarding.
Well, I'm a young professional, and I learned that very recently, that the comfortable, the easy is not taking me anywhere. So I'm going to have to do this. Oh, Paula, it's going to be difficult. I was like, yeah, well, that's the point. If it's easy, it's not going to take you anywhere.
Exactly.
So yeah, that's something I've been learning. So thanks for sharing your perspective too. And now you are the board director of a few companies. What do you think sets companies, successful companies, apart from the rest?
This is a tough question. So first of all, I would say vision and leaders, right? So leadership with a vision, and leadership with a vision that is sustainable, and not sustainable from, I'm not talking environmental standpoint. I mean sustainable, meaning that it's a vision that can come alive. And then I would say the second is the ability to be agile. So now companies are disrupted and disrupting so quickly. The pace of change is accelerating, and it's continuing to accelerate. I think in every industry, and we can see it every day. I mean, it's AI this year, and it's going to be cookieless marketing next year or next month. The go-to-market is becoming super fragmented and very complex. The digital accelerations are everywhere. All of the supply chains are changing and adapting. So successful companies need leaders that are able to evolve and able to see, kind of stay above the fray, so to speak, but see the change and identify pretty quickly what aspects of disruption and digital transformations they can adopt in their business model and which ones they shouldn't, because prioritizing is very important. And then I would say people and creating the right talent in the organization is always what sets companies apart, because at the end, companies are people in action. And so that is what sets successful companies apart from unsuccessful companies, the ability to attract, develop, and set talent in action.
So the beginning of our conversation here, when you took that job at American Apparel, and you were talking about the leadership taking these board director roles, do you do the same assessment with the leaders before accepting roles like that?
I do, very much. So I think that at this point of my career, choice is my luxury. And I make very, very choiceful decisions. And I do spend way more time with people. Maybe earlier on in my career, I was led more by the passion for the industry or the passion for the brand or the passion for the product, which is all great to have. It's not that I lost it. But now I think that I'm a little bit more savvy, and I spend more time getting to know the leaders behind it and the people that I'm going to be working with. Because again, like, my luxury is the choice of the people that I have a relationship with, and I wanna feel that I can contribute, I can be valued, I can trust the people I work with, and so that requires a special due diligence.
Yeah, and I think people don't realize the responsibility of being the board director of
especially in a governance role is very important, because you don't. As a board director, for the most part, you are not overseeing the business. You are overseeing the strategy, the risk, the governance, but you are an influencer rather than you're not an executive. You are an influence. You're an advisor. Your job is to ask the right questions and to have the right influence. So that's where people assessment becomes really important.
It's part of your role. I think when you are in leadership in a C-level position in a company, you have to think about everything about the company, right? Like if the employees are happy, if the company is going towards a specific object and everything. But as a board director, are you also concerned about that, or it's really on the shareholder value, on the governance? How is that?
All of that. So ultimately, governance responsibility is to make sure that there is, of course, a shareholder, like value creation for the shareholders. But beyond that, there is also risk mitigation, certainly helping with culture, absolutely, leadership appointment and succession planning, and then strategic oversight, strategic financial oversight. So that encompasses all of the vision for the company, the long-range planning, the assessment of risks and opportunities, and of course, assessment of management. So being a board of director actually is a big responsibility. There isn't a clear path that prepares you for that. So a lot of it is self-development and really self-learning on your own with your tools. And I actually think that the disruption and and also the regulatory environment, so the SEC regulation and such, has made board directors' role particularly complex, because has broadened terribly the responsibilities without giving probably enough time for boards to evolve properly. So it's another place where like disruption is happening, the boardroom. We talked about very briefly about another disruption that is happening in 2024. We're recording this in January, so we have a whole year to figure many things out. But Google decided that it's gonna kill all the cookies on Chrome. Chrome has like 65% of users. So how do you think this is gonna impact retail? That's my core business here, but businesses in general. All the marketers are so happy right now. Yes.
It contains irony. That was a sarcastic comment.
Because this goes back to like 10 years ago, cookies, but it's probably more than 10 years, but like at the beginning, there were no cookies. Then there were cookies. Then digital marketing came about, right? We all moved the marketing dollars from advertising on radio and paid media and magazines to digital marketing, and now because it was so much more effective, because we could target the audience, and now the targeting has been chipped away by privacy, and now by cookies going away. So I think it's going to bring back a little bit full circle to a couple of things. So first of all, first party data, right? So companies are going to be needing to build and stitch together first-party data, which is not just the CRM and loyalty and the fact that you know my name, my telephone, my email, possibly my age, my gender, and all of that, but it's also going to force companies to gather more of Silvia's data in the form of quizzes, in the form of stitching together her behavior on the website and figuring out, what are her preferences, what she buys first, what she buys the second, like certain patterns of behavior, and then stitching together data from appending data from other sources. So it's going to be, I think, elevating the data scientist roles in the company to become even more relevant as part of the marketing organization to enable first-party data to be used. I can tell you that from a BCG study, companies that do collect, use, stitch together, let's say, first-party data, realize the 2x return on investment on their marketing spend. So first-party data, even with the cookies being in place still right now, is the way to go to increase your marketing effectiveness. And then secondly, I think that creative in a world where cookies do not exist, creative storytelling and relevancy is going to become even more crucial, meaning that the creative that companies and brands put out, where they put it out, the timeliness of how they put it in front of consumers, the engagement that creative creates in every platform, from social to to, of course, the website and any other medium that can reach the customer, is going to be the way that customers also trust brands to give them primary, data about themselves. So I think creative storytelling is going to reemerge as a very powerful way of marketing, and brand marketing is going to go back to maybe spend more time on that versus just like pouring a lot of dollars in digital marketing.
If marketers already didn't have enough challenges.
Yeah, the marketing function is becoming very complex because it's about creative, it's about data science, it's about, of course, managing all the channels, the paid media channels. It's about understanding the customer and the customer insights. So it's a very complex now organization that requires right and left brain to work synergistically together.
And what are the other challenges, except from that it's a huge one? What are the other challenges you're seeing for the retail industry, commerce industry in general for this year?
I think it's the go-to-market, is the ability to, it's really the ability to layer in all of the channels and the go-to-market and go to consumer strategies in a layered way. So we say omnichannel is probably an old word that has a new meaning, because it used to be retail stores and e-commerce. Now omnichannel is literally omnichannel, is the real Latin word omni, because it's live streaming, it's social selling, it's peer-to-peer, it's re-commerce. With the push for sustainability, real sustainability, is re-commerce, taking it back and reselling. It's, of course, the stores, is, of course, e-commerce. So I think that the toughest channel is for traditional retail organizations to evolve into these new B2B2C, evolve into these new disruptive business models fast enough to take advantage of them.
And someone that has achieved so much in your commerce career, someone so amazing like you that has been inspiring me this whole conversation. What would you say to future leaders that are getting to our industry now? What did you say to them?
Well, I would say two things. One is be curious and be close to challenges and disruption, because you're going to learn from it, and build your career from it. As we said earlier, like status quo management, it's not as formative as being close to the heart of the innovation and the disruptions. And then I would say retail is really, really fun. It requires, and even fashion is really, really fun. It requires and enables you to be both creative and analytical. So I think that is a really fun kind of trade-off and challenge and stretch for people to work with. And then I would say, even though right now there is from a social culture zeitgeist, let's say, or political zeitgeist, a little bit less globalization mentality than maybe a few years back, I would still say that the push, digital transformations have brought to us like the ability to sell, buy, and see everywhere. And so be that global citizen, like look at Shein, right? So who even knew of Shein 5 years ago? Like it was not even, and now is probably the biggest fashion global brand in the market.
That is not pursuing the sustainability.
Is certainly not pursuing the sustainability, which is a separate.
That's another episode.
But like globalization is still there because technology enables consumers to connect with companies all over the place. So it's a crowded market because now the globe is in front of you.
In terms of formation, what did you say what people should be studying?
What people should be studying? I think that I've always believed that studying in like scientific, like studying science subjects has high applicability in business. I have a bias for business being a very versatile discipline. It allows you to go from, org all the way to marketing, all the way to finance, all the way to investing. So I think it's a very versatile skill set that, depending on your passion, you can become an executive coach, or you can become a marketer and advertiser. But I've always believed in science, and I think that people that study science can do a lot of things with that.
Especially with all the data
Totally.
that we have access now.
Totally. Data and technology, like from engineering to data science, to physics, to math, like so much.
And if you could go back to 2009 and talk to yourself about to leave Boston Group, what would you tell her?
I would tell her to be courageous, to do it, to be open-minded. I would tell actually to expect that the role of women in the workplace will get better, because I've seen tremendous improvements for women, and I'm very proud of what we achieved, and I'm very passionate about mentoring other women leaders, and oh my gosh, it's so rewarding. And I have to say, like, in just the 10 to 15 years, so many things have changed. Like, we focus on what has not changed yet, but actually we should be talking about like the glass half full, because we have broken so many glass ceilings and so many measures of achievement. I'm so proud of all the women in the world and what they contributed to achieve.
My career doesn't have much more than 10 years, and I already felt the change. I started in finance, and now I just feel a different level of respect and even sisterhood. I think women are supporting more women.
Absolutely.
I think it used to be a competition. I'm the only woman here, but now it's more like, hey, let's grow together. Let's do it together.
Absolutely. So. The confidence that I see in young women, the ambition that I see, rightfully so, in young women is so energizing. I never would have thought, when I left BCG, I never would have thought I would be here with you saying that I've been a CEO and a board member. Never. Like, that was not even in my consideration set.
And that's good. And that's good, especially good because many of the biggest supporters of my career were men. And they are also changing. They're also changing the way they pursue. So.
Same for me. Some of my greatest mentors are actually men that believe in women.
Amazing. And I have a last question before we finish this interview. Have you ever bought anything from Los Angeles Apparel?
I have not. But that's actually it's not because of the product. It's because of my values.
I agree. That was just a tricky question to end this interview. Thank you so much for coming here. It was a pleasure to finally meeting you in person. And well, grazie mille.
Thank you, Paola. Grazie.
I hope you enjoyed this interview as much as I did. I remember when I left the studio, I was walking around New York feeling super empowered and ready for any challenge. We are here ending January this week, and it feels like this whole month went by in 1 week, but February is here with lots of interesting interviews and events to be at. Remember that your feedback means a lot, so please reach out to me on LinkedIn or send me an email to ideas@offbounds.tv, and see you next Tuesday.